So I just wanted to say a few things about how I see Kashmira's project, and I guess the way I find it easiest to explain how it might fit into a broader landscape of research is in relation to some of the ways I've been thinking about educational design, particularly educational design for university teaching and learning. And in the diagram you can see that I think about three components that the educational designer has to take into account, but also that those things have to be considered in a rather indirect way. And that's best explained in terms of what I call the relationship between task and activity. That educational designers, teachers as designers, part of their job is to design tasks for students to do. But what students actually do depends on their interpretation of task requirements and what they're interested in. And we like to give freedom for students to adapt the tasks and make them more useful, more interesting, more meaningful for themselves. So there's already some slippage there, creative, constructive slippage. Now, in addition to task design influencing students' activity, and it's the activity that's crucially important, there are two other kinds of influences at work here. We know that learning activity is socially situated, and we know that it's physically situated, and that other people who are around in the environment and the kinds of physical and digital resources that are around in the environment will have an influence over what students do, what they can do. Now, it's not the business of the educational designer to say who students should work with or exactly what tools and resources they have to use. Students in higher education need to take some responsibility for that, initiative, and show some autonomy with that. They pick their friends, they decide who they're going to work with, they pick exactly what tools they're going to use and what resources they're going to draw on. But as designers in our design role, we have some responsibility there. We make recommendations about books or papers, articles that might be read. We do our best to ensure that the physical and digital environment is appropriately supportive, and that tools are available, and so on. And where Kashmira's project fits in, I think, is in relation to the social space. That as teachers, repeating myself, it's not our job to say, you must work with you. In general, there has to be choice over that. But we have a responsibility for constructing these things that I call organisational forms. They might be teams of students, they might be a community of practice. It's an abstract term that denotes a variety of ways in which students might come together to work on tasks, activities, over short or long periods of time. And although there's quite a variety of ways, quite a variety of organisational forms out there, there's not really a systematised literature on that. So part of Kashmira's project is about identifying the variety of organisational forms in use in higher education, and then trying to crystallise those, trying to systematise those in the form of educational design patterns, so that design experience, teaching experience can be shared more readily, and good ideas can be passed on about productive ways of encouraging and helping students work together, whether in small groups, large groups, teams, communities, learning sets, whatever it might be. So one of the early phases of the research really is, I guess, involves a twofold strategy. One is to start gathering a collection of the various ways in which teachers in higher education organise students into groups, teams, use these various organisational forms that I've talked about. But the other is to start building up a community of people who are especially interested in that area of educational design, teaching activity. And that's one of the primary functions of this blog, that it will help build up that community of people who have experimented with this area, think about it, and have experience that they'd like to contribute and share. And ideally, over time, the blog will build up a self-sustaining community of people who are learning from each other and contributing good ideas and good experience. At later stages in the research, it will be possible for us to formalise some of this in the shape of educational design patterns, and that will be a later stage in Kashmira's work.